Hello, hello, good morning. What's going on, everybody? So today we have the monster skill balancing pre-notice. Now, people were really looking forward to this. Before we get into it, I want to say that I am super excited for this. First of all, I got a buff. Let's go. I got a buff. I got a huge buff. I was not expecting it. I wasn't expecting anything close to what it is, but I am so excited for this. All right, so let's talk about it. We're going to be going through the monster skill balancing modification and improvements. So we'll go down line by line. Basically, I'll just read out what they are. I'll give brief thoughts, and then we'll go back over. We'll do best and then worst changes. So let's talk about it. First, we have everybody's favorite Cough Kappa unit, Dominic. So Dominic, the Wind Weapon Master, improvisation skill passive, removed the effect that your attack power increases as your HP decreases. So rough thoughts on this were that I thought his biggest issue was his attack bar gain. Being 30% and being non-glancing is very, very strong. However, since they're removing the attack increase from losing HP, it should mitigate how much harder it is for him to heal when he's below 50, as well as the insane damage pressure from trying to kill him and then getting punished for it. So a change like this I'm very welcome to, because I think that he's still unique in the sense that he's able to rotate. He has that ability to kind of go through elements, but he's also not like insanely overpowered in every stage of the game, right? If you're lowering his HP, suddenly, you know, he feels threatened. He's not like, oh yeah, keep lowering me so I can one-shot you. Yeah. Give it to me. So that's a good change. I think that's really nice. We have Water Onmyouji, Shizuka. We saw a lot of Shizuka in the Legend Tournament. She was very, very strong there. For skill 3, All Things in Nature, is now getting 1 turn cooldown to skill 3. Now, I think this is fairly balanced. Overall, Shizuka has been very, very strong. Currently, her cooldowns on skill 3 is 5 turns, and it can be lowered by using her skill 2 on herself. So her skill 2 lowers the cooldown by 1. I think this is fair, mainly because they increase the buff amount, buff duration on skill 3 from 1 turn to 2 turns. So this will make it so like she doesn't feel like you're just cycling like infinite immunity between like her and Wusa. Even though her and Wusa together will still be like a ton of immunity, or like her and Fran, etc. Her and Riley can be really strong in that sense. I think this is fair because she didn't lose any of her identity, right? She's still unique. She's still very good and very strong. So overall, I'm pretty okay with this. Now, this is the change that I think is probably going to be the most impactful. And there's a couple other aspects that I want to talk about. So later in the video, people are always asking about Tickrates for oracles. So later in the video, I'll be going over that. If you want to skip to that right now, you can check the chapters. Otherwise, please enjoy the rest of this video. All right, guys. So I talked about the tick rate in the video. You don't actually have to skip ahead, but it's going to be right here. But basically, tick rates in RTA for oracles were traditionally plus 123, plus 144, plus 167. The new tick rates are going to be this. This is combat speed. So when we're talking about combat speed, this means speed after tower and leads. So not factoring in speed buff, if you want to hit this 311 tick, which you have to round up to 312, you're going to be needing a plus 173 oracle with a 24% lead. So keep that in mind. If you're looking for the tick below that, it's going to be plus 153. So that's fine. And then if you're looking for the last tick here, it's going to be plus 220 with a 24% lead. So you can obviously adjust accordingly if you have 33% lead, if you have a 19% lead, if you have 10% lead. But keep in mind, these are going to be what the tick rates are now based on the fact that you're going to be getting 10% attack bar. So skill 1 for oracles, passing time, recovers 15% of the attack bar each time the attack lands a critical hit, is now being reduced down to 10%. So instead of getting 45% attack bar on skill 1 with oracles, they'll now be getting 30%. Now, the first thing I want to say is I think this is a change that should have existed in the game a long time ago. I think that this is a very, very good balancing because it basically makes the units not overscale in terms of like rotations, right? So oracles into Leo is really good because you rotate so fast. Oracles with Verad is insane because you get 85% attack bar, which is now going to be 70%, right? Like they still have that rotation, but it's not as pressuring. It's not as overwhelming to deal with. So I think this is really good. Now, the next part of this that's changed with the oracles is what I think is actually amazing for this balance patch and is what's giving me a lot of hope that the balancing team is doing a lot better of a job. So I'm really, really excited to talk about this. So they nerfed the skill 1 in the oracles, but for all of the regular elemental oracles, they added an effect to their skill 3, which I think is really cool. So this does mean that Gianna and Lima will take a small nerf. However, we also know that both Gianna and Lima are absolutely crazy. Lima is one of the strongest units out there right now. Gianna has forever been one of the strongest units out there. So Juno, her loss of cause and time effect passive, is now getting an effect added that says increases your attack speed for 2 turns if you get a harmful effect. Now, the reason this is good is because 1, speed is always good. 2, it's a 2-turn buff and not a 1-turn buff. And 3, what they're doing is they're nerfing the part of each of these units' kits that makes them really, really, really ridiculous and giving them something else that gives them an even stronger identity in the sense of being unique. So a lot of people are going to be like, oh, who cares about speed buff? But like, think about it. The Oracle still hit 3 times. You still get additional damage. And now you're doing more damage because you have speed buff. So overall, I think this is a great change. Seara's Promise Time. Now keep in mind, this is Promise Time. So this is skill 3 when you detonate the bomb. So the effect added is it decreases the attack bar of the target with a detonated bomb by 30%. Now, there's a couple things in here that I'm not sure about. First of all, does it decrease the attack bar of everybody or just the unit that you select? The reason I'm not sure about that is because of the wording. It says decreases the attack bar of the target with a detonated bomb. So does that mean selected target, or does that just mean any target that has a detonated bomb? I personally think it's going to be any target that has the detonated bomb. But now this gives you more of a reason to actually blow up your bomb on Seara versus just throwing up a bomb, cycling with skill 1, throw up another bomb, throw up another bomb, throw up another bomb. So it's kind of cool because you can disrupt turn order. So Seara does see a little bit more prominence in a situation like this. This one is my personal favorite because I'm a very, very big fan of Praha. So Praha, her Daydream, the skill 3 heal and sleep, now has the effect added that it increases the attack speed of all allies by 2 turns. Now that's really cool. Cycling is really strong. You know, additional damage for your team based on speed. You're going to be able to rotate faster. So if you sleep the enemy team and you sleep yourself and everyone's like low attack bar, you're going to be cycling faster into them in the same way that like when Tableau uses skill 3 resets, gives the attack bar or gives the speed buff, your whole team's going to be moving forward. So overall, I think this change is really good because it's a give and take, right? They nerfed the Oracles in the sense that they were rotating too fast and they're too strong. And Gianna and Lima are insane. And now they're saying, okay, well, we want to nerf the Oracles because we think that they're a little bit too much. And their skill 1 is really what makes them too much because of the constant rotations. So what we're going to do is we're going to slow them down a little bit. We're not going to let them ramp as fast. However, we think that Seara, Juno, and Praha were already in a good place and they didn't need a hard nerf. So we're going to give them something else that makes them unique and gives them a strong identity. And for that reason, I'm absolutely in love with this buff. Well, buff and nerf. So here's another cool thing. We're talking about the dragons now. I'm actually going to scroll to the bottom because there's an aspect in here in the patch notes that I think is important that I talk about before we go over this. So if you scroll all the way down here, it says dragon. So dragon, water, fire, light, and dark. Now keep in mind, this doesn't include the fire one. And I'm not really sure why, but that's fine. Basically, they're getting 5 speed. So instead of being 93 base speed, we're going to be seeing 98 base speed on dragons. This is really, really cool in my opinion. And also the light dragon is getting an awakening change from resist, which is honestly kind of useless on him. It's pretty much only for like if you're using it for turn 2 cleanse. And he's now getting an increased critical rate by 15%. Now the reason that this is actually so good is because Zerath is one of the best PvE units in the game. If you want to build super crazy speed teams, if you have a Zerath that one-shots, because his AI is so good, you now need 15 less crit, which means you can look for HP, you can look for crit damage, you can look for that speed you were missing for your speed tuning. So back to the top here, we have our dragons. So water dragon, fire dragon, and dark dragon are getting effect adds. So Verad, the water dragon, absolute 0. Glancing hits won't occur if the enemy's defense is less or is half or less than your defense. Now, I know this sounds crazy, but before we get into it being too crazy, the first thing I want to bring up is a lot of people in RTA have fairly high defense because artifacts exist, right? If you're someone who runs about, let's say, 1300 defense, right? 1300 defense is fairly reasonable for like Guardian Plus. You have a 600 base defense unit and you have like plus 650, plus 700. With your tower included, you're going to be around 1.4k, maybe a little bit less. So to realistically get enough defense to actually make this a thing, you're going to be looking for plus 1.8k, plus 1.9k, and in some cases, plus 2k defense on your Verad. So keep in mind, while this is a good change and a good buff, it is not easy to hit under a lot of circumstances. So please keep that in mind. Don't think, oh my god, Verad's broken OP. He's good, but his condition is still difficult to obtain. So Zaiross here is getting a change, but didn't get the speed for some reason. Fiery Breath, so effect added, increases the skill cooldown by 1 turn more than the max cooldown if the enemy's attack power is half or less than your attack power. Now, this is interesting to me because I honestly don't feel like Zaiross necessarily needed to change, right? He's still full resets, but I think the reason they added this was to deal with those really low cooldown skills, really low cooldown passives, you know, the ones that are like on 2 turns, maybe 3 turns. Being able to bring them to 3 turns and maybe 4 turns makes them a lot easier to deal with in terms of siege, arena, etc. So that's a very interesting change that they made. Now, this is the one that I think is the most, probably the most impactful. And if you've watched Seishizo's video, he is an incredibly strong player in the EU server. He actually does Arena Rush with this unit almost every week. And because of this buff, he's going to be getting a massive, massive buff. So Dark Dragon, Grogen, his Decimate now always lands as a critical hit on light monsters. And they've increased the bonus crit damage on his skill from 100% to 150. So the reason this is so impactful is because, one, you no longer glance mollies. Keep in mind, you can't glance other units, but you no longer glance molly, which is pretty big. Pretty big, right? You're always, it's not even no longer glances. It's always crits, which is quite impactful in my opinion. And the next part about this is Kinki. So you'll see why in just a moment here when we talk about Kinki. So Kinki, banging head against a brick wall, his passive activation condition has now changed. So the activation condition is now critical hits will occur only when you get attacked by the skills that always land as a critical hit. So that would be Dark Dragon, Grogen. That would be Tiana skill 2. That would be Lydia skill 2. So overall, and I guess Alicia skill 2, we can't leave her out. But essentially, it seems like they're making a lot of buffs to arena offense, to siege offense. They're making a lot of changes here that are very good for players to win more. But it worries me a little bit in the sense of on defense, I think that a lot of people are going to find a lot more frustration trying to build teams. So we got 2 Valkyrie buffs in here as well. We have Camilla. So Camilla is getting a change to her passive. There's an effect add that now reduces the damage of non-critical hits by 20%. So Camilla is now an even better siege tank. And honestly, probably a pretty good stall unit in arena. And actually could be a very, very good unit for inter-server arena if you're looking to get that really quick offense. Or sorry, inter-server arena if you're looking to get a very safe offense. Now this one is weird. I don't know yet if I like it or not, but I'm open and welcome to change and seeing how things work. So Vanessa's Warrior Return, which is her skill 3, no longer a passive, now an active skill, has been changed. So this skill decreases the cooldown by 4 turns now. So now this used to be an 8-turn passive. It is now a 4-turn. Well, it used to be an 8-turn skill. It is now a 4-turn skill. And they have added an effect that says the max skill cooldown of Warrior's Return is increased by 2 turns whenever you revive an ally with this skill up to 2 times. So essentially, the first revive is at 4, the second revive is at 6, and every revive after that will be at 8 turns. And I think this is a cool change. I think it's good, but I'm not sure if this is impactful in any way in terms of arena, in terms of RTA. So overall, you know, I welcome more changes to the 33% speed leads, but my biggest worry is that it's just not good enough when we have units like Oliver out there right now. So Wind Valkyrie gets a cool change, big damage buff. I know Daniel would love this, but the Sword of Discharge used to be 1 target selected and then 2 random swords. And now in this situation, you'll be getting 1 target selected and 3 times. So potentially an extra hit there of random attacks. So you might be able to get a 4th sword, which would be pretty cool. And then Dark Valkyrie Ragnarok is getting increased damage by 15%. Now, I think this is a good change to her in the sense of I think it's a good buff. It's very small. Don't get me wrong. I know a lot of players would look to have her completely reworked. But if you are someone who already uses your Trinity in arena offense or anything like that, this buff is actually pretty good. But it's not significant. So at the end of the day, you know, give Trinity a rework. She deserves it. A lot of people love to use her, but just find it very difficult or are just generally not interested in arena content. So here's me saying it, come to us. I think Trinity deserves a cool rework. She's a beautiful unit with an absolutely amazing potential kit, but we just need to make some adjustments to that. So the reason why I think this is actually like an insane buff, this is like, oh my God, what were they thinking? How could they possibly do this? This unit now has a 2-turn defense break on a 2-turn cooldown that gains 100% attack bar when he's attacked by a provoked target, and you have 2-turn provoke on it. So 2-turn provoke is good because it doesn't completely nullify a violent proc, but it essentially does because you have to use skill 1 twice. And if you 2-turn provoke someone that's stunned now, and if they violent proc, then they hit you, and then you get your attack bar back. So I actually think Gurkha is going to be wild and crazy, and I hope that you guys get to see some videos of me slamming people with him. If you haven't already seen the video, you want a good comparison like baseline, go check out Sean B's YouTube. We put out a video together where he was playing on my account with Gurkha, and he was like, this unit's fun, but not that great. And now I think he's going to be fun and OP. So, you know, I never prayed for a buff to my LD Nat 5s, but oh my god, am I welcoming it with open arms. I'm here. I'm ready. Gurkha, take the wheel. All right, so we have a couple other cool things. So Dark Panda is getting a buff as well to his passive that says decreases the incoming damage by 35%. This is now 50%. So Dark Panda now takes 50% less damage if the enemy has less attack power than you. Now, I think this is really good because it allows him to be a little bit squishier, a little focused on either speed or damage. However, additional damage is still very good against him, so keep that in mind. Water Totemist, this is a great change. So Water Totemist, Strong Bull Soul. I believe this is the skill 3. I can check really quick here. Because I don't actually have an Aaliyah, but I know a lot of people have always wanted a cleanse on this. So it is her skill 3. So her skill 3 now is going to be giving you a 1 harmful effect cleanse, right? So this is basically what Riley does on her skill 3. So Riley is the attack buff. And in this case, Aaliyah now has that cleanse as well. Dark Totem change, Maya, Half Moon Tribe. Provokes for 1 turn with a 50% chance. I honestly don't think this is very good. This is the Totem skill 4. I generally don't think this skill is very good. Mainly because the effect condition for it is not that great. Like, it does do a full strip, and then it decreases HP based on, like, enemy harmful effect rates. So if you are provoking and then getting that and then getting stacks and using it again, like, it can cycle, like, a lot. But at the same thing, with a 50% chance, it's very inconsistent. And everything else that Maya does in the field just doesn't feel very impactful overall. So I'm going to give this one a pretty not okay. Okay, these changes are really cool. And I'm really excited for Glory. If you guys don't know who Glory is, Glorious EU on Twitch. Or it might just be Glorious now. He has a Shun, which is the light Shadowcaster. I know it's really bad when it was released, but I'm really excited to see how it works for him because of the changes to it. So let's go over the changes to Shadow Tie first, and then we can talk about the Wind skill 3 and then the Light skill 3. So Zen and Shun, the Wind and Light Shadowcaster, now have a change to Shadow Tie. So the first thing is they've decreased the cooldown from 5 turns to 4 turns. Now this actually goes down from 5 to 4, which means it goes from 3 to 2 after skill ups. Now 3 to 2 is actually pretty good based on what happened here. So there's a lot of text on here. Basically, the change is that in the past, when you use this skill, it doesn't attack. It just ties the enemy to a shadow, and that's it. But now, it attacks the enemy and ties the shadow. So I'm not really sure what the order is going to be here. I'm really hoping it ties first and then attacks, because that would make the most sense. But if not, then maybe not a great buff to Shun there, the light one. So big change in skill 2 is it becomes 2-turn cooldown instead of 3, and it also attacks the target now. So the reason that that's important is because of Shun, but let me go over Zen first because it's here. Zen skill 3 has been very bad. People hate it because it's just like a worse Tableau, right? So it's guaranteed to exchange the attack bar status of all enemies. I believe they have to be not immune to it via will. And then recovers your attack bar by 100% after randomly exchanging enemy attack bars. So the change that it's going to do now is that it actually removes 1 buff. So it's going to strip 1. And then grant a random effect for 2 turns, which is either defense break, slow debuff, or glancing hits on the enemy. That gets stripped. So it has to get stripped, and then it will replace it with either defense break, glancing, or slow debuff. And then afterwards, it will randomly exchange the attack bars. Now, I don't think you're going to be getting that 100% attack bar back again, but I think that's okay because they're actually giving it relevant debuffs in this case and a strip. So the unit no longer needs to be set up super hard. It can set itself up. So going into Shun here, what Shun did before was ignores defense when attacking a target tied by the shadow. So that's why I'm wondering if it's a tie and then attack, because if it's tie and then attack, Shun is going to be tying a unit and then immediately ignoring its defense, which could be very, very strong. And the shadow you tied won't get untied even if the enemy takes damage. Now what they're doing is they're adding this decreases the damage taken from the tied target by 30%. Now, in my eyes, this is something that's really good against Mashas. This is something that's really good against Dominic, because it reduces the damage and forces them to hit someone else while you're still able to deal damage. The next aspect of this that I think is really neat is that they added a removes one beneficial effect when attacking an enemy. So in this case, you may be able to strip tie and ignore, or just strip tie, and you can hit targets now that have immunity and strip. So overall, like, it seems like a pretty good quality of life change, but I really have to see how the changes to Shadow Tie apply in practice versus just talking about the theory in a video like this. The next we have Chun-Li's are the Blade Dancers. So the Blade Dancers, the Wind and Dark ones, and the Water one, they've adjusted the Blade Dance of Night and the Moonlight Dance. So these used to previously decrease the enemy's attack bar by 25% with each hit, and now they go down to 40%. So the interesting thing with this, and the reason it's separated, Wind and Dark have the same skill too. So Dark is the one where when it's 0, when you hit an enemy that has 0 attack bar, you ignore defense. The cool thing with the Water one is that you'll do the same thing, but it's 7 hits, and the 7th hit always ignores defense. So that could be a very strong PvE buff for that unit right there, or even potentially a Special League or a Siege buff. So we have the Fire Horus, as some of you may know, Duamatef. Strategic Prevention. This skill is actually kind of neat now that they've changed it into a very usable standpoint. So this skill attacks an enemy to make the attack bar to 0 with a 70% chance, and then stuns the target for 1 turn. And this is defense scaling. So now I believe they're making it strictly defense scaling instead of being attack and defense scaling. However, what they're doing now is they're removing the attack bar, and they're removing the stun, and they're making it grants oblivion effects and prevents the target from removing harmful effect rates for 2 turns with a 70% chance each. Now this goes to 3-turn cooldown with 100% harmful effect rates. So what you're doing now is you're using oblivion and uncleansable debuff, which means they have to cleanse twice, right? So if you cleanse the uncleansable debuff, it doesn't take off the rest of the debuffs. It only takes that one off. Then you have to cleanse again to remove everything. So I think that this is actually a really cool unit. We could potentially be seeing this a lot more in Siege. This could be making copper units, or copper teams, a lot better in this sense. So I'm pretty excited to see how that works out. Gargoyles, Water. The statue is getting a buff to get more HP when your turn ends with less than 70% HP. They'll now turn into a statue. For the Fire and Dark one, Destructive Claws, which I believe is their skill 1. No, it is not. It's their skill 2. Increases their HP recovery when the statue is gone. You get 5% more, and then same with the other ones. So that's basically their... for Malite, that's the AoE Provoke skill. You turn into a statue, you come back. You'll now be gaining 15% HP instead of 10% HP, which is kind of cool. And the last changes that I think are really cool here, last changes involved Dice Magician. Now, I'm really excited about this because I love Ludo. Ludo is one of my favorite units. I've used it for so long in Special Leagues, so many times. And they're making a buff to him that I think is really good. So prior to, Ludo would roll 1 die at the start of his turn. And it would, or 1 dice, 1 set of die, or it's 1 die, and it would either increase his damage or decrease damage taken. Now, the biggest issue with this is if you got turn 1, you didn't get shit. You didn't get damage mitigation, you didn't get damage, nothing. But now, you now roll a die at the start of the battle and every turn. So you'll be able to potentially get that damage mitigation right off the bat. So Wind Dice, this is the RNG one. If you guys know, if you roll a pair, you basically revive your entire team. They're increasing it so that his... before it was the ally will be revived with more HP as the sum of the numbers increases. And now it is the higher the sum of the dice, the more HP you recover, and the more HP the revived allies will have. So this is pretty cool because it also gives him a heal. So every turn you roll dice and you recover HP. If you get the same number, you revive your allies. The higher the number is, the more HP you get back. And the higher the number is, the more HP your allies revive with. So this can be really fun. This can be really RNG. It's probably not going to be meta in any way, but God, this unit is so much fun to watch replays of. All right, let's talk about the last ones here. So Dice Magician, Water, and Dark. So this is Reno and Monty. So their skill before says rolls 2 dice to attack and all enemies and randomly grants unrecoverable defense break, increased glancing for 2 turns. So the cool thing is it says more effects will be granted as the sum of the numbers increase and instantly gains another turn if you gain the same number. So what they're doing here that's kind of neat is randomly grants harmful effect rates, increases chance of landing a glancing hit. This is now going to be a one buff strip. So instead of glancing hits, you'll now be getting a 1 buff strip, which is kind of nice because they're adding these self-setup units. We talked about the Awakenings already. Feng Yan is getting crit rate change to accuracy, which is huge. Feng Yan doesn't crit on passive. His passive can't crit, so he doesn't get bonus damage from the defense on critting. So that's really nice that they gave him accuracy in that sense. We talked about the speed awakening, or the speed bonuses here for the dragons. And then their last 2 things would be the changes to mages. So Coco, the one that kind of puts up 5 balls and obliterates a unit, will no longer have crit rate lead in guild content. She will now have attack lead of 44%. And Momo, the wind one, previously had an attack lead of 44% in guild content and now has an HP lead of 44% guild content. So these kind of line up more with the unit's kits. So hopefully we're going to see some really cool changes. Overall, I think the best units in the patch, top 5 changes. I think the number 1 best change for the game is Oracle Skill 1 nerf. I know that's very, very aggressive to say, but as someone who abuses oracles all the time, I really think that they're pretty OP. So I think that the skill 1 reduction is really good because it balances out Lima and Gianna in a way, but they also decided to buff the regular elements. So that's my number 1. Number 2 is going to be Gurkha. I think Gurkha change is actually like insane. This unit's busted now. At least I think it's busted. Maybe it's not, but like it just seems so good. It just seems so good to have 2-turn provoke on top of 2-turn defense break. The third change that I think is the best is probably the nerf to Dominic. I think Dominic's nerf is absolutely necessary in the game. He needs to either reduce the amount of damage he deals, or he needs to reduce the speed at which he cycles. And if they're going to pick one versus the other, I am totally okay with either. In this case, they chose to reduce the amount of damage he deals. As his HP decreases, it's going to be more consistent across time. And that's fine with me. That's totally fine with me. In terms of the things I didn't like in the patch, I think the biggest thing that I don't like in the patch is this change to Water Dragon. Mainly because I feel like on paper, it sounds really good. But when you when you do the numbers and you do it in practice, it just doesn't feel that impactful because you need so much defense to really have this like consistency. And then on top of that, you need speed and accuracy. And it's just a lot. It's just a lot to get. So that's probably number 1 for me. Number 2, I think, would be probably Trinity. I think Trinity could really use something unique to her besides just, here's some more damage, even though you're HP type, Keck W. And number 3. Number 3 is probably Maya. I think Maya doesn't really get much out of this provoke. Sure, you can probably have some good memes with her, like old Gurkha, but at the end of the day, I really don't think she's doing a lot with the provoke of 50% chance on her skill 4. So overall, I think it's a great patch. I'm honestly going to give this an 8.5, maybe. I'm going to give it a 9. I'm going to give it a 9 because I think that this is a good direction for the game in terms of RTA. And while I don't agree with the direction for Siege because they're and Arena because they're making offense so much stronger than defense even more, I do think that this is a good turning point or how they should consider buffing and nerfing units in the future, especially when it comes to the entire family like they did with the Oracles. So please let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I know this was a super long video, but there was so much to go over, and I was just really excited to talk about it. So thank you so much for being here, and I will see you guys soon.